Question number 1. What is the primary objective of access control? A. To grant unlimited access to all users. B. To prioritize access requests based on urgency. C. To restrict access to resources based on specific criteria. D. To track user activity for performance analysis. The correct answer is C. To restrict access to resources based on specific criteria. Access control aims to limit access to resources such as data, files, systems, applications, or physical locations based on predefined rules and criteria. This ensures that only authorized users can access and perform specific actions on these resources. Here's a breakdown of why the other options are incorrect. A. To grant unlimited access to all users. This contradicts the core principle of access control, which is to restrict access based on specific criteria. B. To prioritize access requests based on urgency. While urgency may be considered in specific access control scenarios, it's not the primary objective. The focus is on defining criteria to determine who can access what, regardless of urgency. D. To track user activity for performance analysis. While user activity can be tracked and analyzed, it's not the primary objective of access control. Access control focuses on preventing unauthorized access and ensuring authorized users have the right permissions to perform specific actions, not just monitoring their activity. Question number 2. Which of the following is not a common type of access control? A. Physical access control, for example, key cards. B. Network access control, for example, firewalls. C. Application access control, for example, user permissions. D. Data encryption, for example, scrambling sensitive information. The correct answer is D. Data encryption, for example, scrambling sensitive information. While data encryption plays a crucial role in information security, it's not directly related to access control mechanisms. Encryption scrambles data to make it unreadable without the appropriate decryption key. This protects the confidentiality of the data even if unauthorized users gain access to it. Here's why the other options are considered common types of access control. A. Physical access control. This controls physical entry to specific locations or areas, often using methods like keycards, security badges, or biometric identification. B. Network access control. This regulates access to computer networks, often using firewalls, intrusion detection systems, IDS, and access control lists, ACLs, to filter incoming and outgoing traffic based on defined rules. C. Application access control. This manages access to applications and software programs by defining who can use them, what actions they can perform within the application, and what data they can access within it. Data encryption, though crucial for protecting information security, is not directly involved in determining who can access a resource or what actions they can take on it. It focuses on protecting the data itself once accessed. Hello viewers, please subscribe my YouTube channel and like and share this video to get or reach large audience. If you're enjoying the content, why not give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Question number 3. What are the 3 main elements involved in access control decisions? A. User identity, resource type, authorization level. B. Password complexity, network speed, software version. C. Hardware compatibility, user location, time of day. D. Application interface, user experience, system performance. The correct answer is A. User identity, resource type, authorization level. The 3 main elements involved in access control decisions are user identity. This identifies the individual requesting access, often through an authentication process like username and password, biometric authentication, or tokens. Resource type. This identifies the resource being accessed, which could be data, files, applications, systems, or physical locations. Authorization level. This determines what actions the user is allowed to perform on the resource. This can be based on predefined roles, individual user permissions, or other factors depending on the access control model used. Here's why the other options are incorrect. B. Password complexity, network speed, software version. These factors are relevant to system security and user experience, but not directly involved in making access control decisions. C. Hardware compatibility, user location, time of day. While these factors may be considered in specific access control scenarios, for example, location-based access restrictions, time-based access controls, they are not universally used for access control decisions and are not among the three main elements. D. Application interface, user experience, system performance. These aspects are crucial for user interaction, but not directly relevant to the core elements used to determine who can access what and what they can do with it. Question number 4. What is the difference between authentication and authorization in access control? A. Authentication verifies user identity, while authorization grants access permissions. B. Authentication checks system compatibility, while authorization defines access levels. C. Authentication secures data encryption, while authorization manages user passwords. D. Authentication logs user activity, while authorization monitors network traffic. The correct answer is A. Authentication verifies user identity, while authorization grants access permissions. Authentication and authorization are two crucial but distinct processes in access control. Authentication. This process verifies the claimed identity of a user attempting to access a resource. It confirms whether the user is who they say they are, often using mechanisms like usernames and passwords, tokens, or biometric identification, fingerprint, facial recognition. Authorization. This process determines what level of access a user has to a resource, based on their verified identity and other factors. It defines what actions the user is allowed to perform on the resource, such as read, write, edit, or delete. Here's why the other options are incorrect. B. Authentication checks system compatibility, while authorization defines access levels. While system compatibility is important for functionality, it's not directly related to authentication or authorization. C. Authentication secures data encryption, while authorization manages user passwords. Data encryption and user password management are separate security measures, not directly involved in authentication or authorization. D. Authentication logs user activity, while authorization monitors network traffic. While both processes can involve logging and monitoring, these are secondary functions not defining their core purposes. Question number 5. What does DAC stand for? A. Data Access Control. B. Discretionary Access Control. C. Dynamic Access Control. D. Dictionary Access Control. The correct answer is B. Discretionary Access Control. It accurately reflects the meaning of DAC, where the owner or discretionary has the authority to control access to their resources. Here's a breakdown of the options and why they are correct or incorrect. A. Data Access Control. While this term is related to access control, it's not the specific term used for the DAC model. DAC focuses on access control in general, not just for data. C. Dynamic Access Control. This refers to a different access control model, where access rights can change based on various factors, not solely on the owner's discretion as in DAC. D. Dictionary Access Control. This term is not relevant to access control models or computer science in general. It appears to be a nonsensical option based on the context of the question and the accompanying image, which likely depicts something unrelated. Hello viewers, please subscribe my YouTube channel and like and share this video to get or reach large audience. If you're enjoying the content, why not give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Question number 6. Which access control model relies on predefined security labels to determine access rights? A. Discretionary Access Control, DAC. B. Mandatory Access Control, MAC. C. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. D. Attribute-Based Access Control, ABAC. The correct answer is B. Mandatory Access Control, MAC. Mandatory Access Control, MAC, is the access control model that relies on predefined security labels to determine access rights. These labels are centrally managed and assigned to both users and resources based on a classification hierarchy. For example, top secret, secret, confidential, unclassified. Here's why the other options are not the chosen answer. A. Discretionary Access Control, DAC. This model grants owners of resources control over who can access them, but it doesn't rely on predefined labels. C. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. This model assigns permissions based on predefined roles, not security labels. D. Attribute-Based Access Control, ABAC. This model considers various attributes like user identity, resource type, and time, but it may not use a predefined and structured hierarchy like MAC's security labels. Question number 7. In an RBAC model, how are access permissions assigned? A. Based on individual user characteristics. B. Based on the resource type and user identity. C. Based on predefined roles within the organization. D. Based on a combination of factors like time and location. The correct answer is C. Based on predefined roles within the organization. In role-based access control, RBAC, access permissions are assigned based on predefined roles within the organization. These roles represent different job functions and responsibilities. Each role is associated with a specific set of permissions that define what actions users in that role are allowed to perform on various resources. Here's why the other options are incorrect. A. Based on individual user characteristics. While individual user characteristics might be considered in specific scenarios, RBAC primarily relies on predefined roles to simplify access management for larger organizations. B. Based on the resource type and user identity. While RBAC can consider the resource type in certain implementations, its core focus is on assigning permissions based on roles, not directly on individual user identities combined with resource types. D. Based on a combination of factors like time and location. While RBAC models might evolve to incorporate additional factors like time or location in specific contexts, the core approach revolves around predefined roles and associated permissions. Question number 8. Which access control model is best suited for highly sensitive information with strict security requirements? A. Discretionary Access Control, DAC. B. Mandatory Access Control, MAC. C. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. D. Attribute-Based Access Control, ABAC. The correct answer is B. Mandatory Access Control, MAC. Among the listed access control models, Mandatory Access Control, MAC, is the best suited for protecting highly sensitive information with strict security requirements due to the following reasons. Centralized control and strict enforcement. MAC enforces access control based on predefined security labels assigned to both resources and users by a central authority. This centralized control and rigid enforcement of access rules ensure that only authorized users with the appropriate security clearance level can access specific resources. Limited user control. Unlike DAC, which allows users to share access to their resources, MAC limits the ability of users to modify permissions. This reduces the risk of accidental or unauthorized access to sensitive information through user actions like sharing or granting excessive permissions. Clear and defined hierarchy. MAC utilizes a well-defined hierarchy of security labels, for example, top secret, secret, confidential, unclassified. This clear structure ensures only individuals with the corresponding clearance level can access resources assigned with the same or lower security labels. This offers a high level of granularity in access control compared to models like RBAC that rely solely on roles. While the other options have their advantages, Discretionary Access Control, DAC, offers flexibility but might not be suitable for highly sensitive information due to its reliance on user control over access sharing, which can introduce potential vulnerabilities. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC, primarily focuses on predefined roles, which might not capture the specific security needs of highly sensitive information requiring more granular control beyond predefined roles. Attribute-based access control, RBAC, offers flexibility by considering various attributes for access control, but its complexity in managing and configuring policies, along with the potential for exceptions, could introduce vulnerabilities in protecting highly sensitive information compared to the stricter enforcement of RBAC. Therefore, if the primary focus is on ensuring maximum security for highly sensitive data, where strict enforcement, limited user control, and a clear security hierarchy are crucial, RBAC emerges as the most suitable access control model. Hello viewers, please subscribe my YouTube channel and like and share this video to get or reach large audience. If you're enjoying the content, why not give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Question number 9. Which access control model grants users the ability to share access to their resources with others? A. Mandatory Access Control, MAC. B. Discretionary Access Control, DACC. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC-D. Attribute-Based Access Control, RBAC. The correct answer is B. Discretionary Access Control, DAC. Among the listed access control models, Discretionary Access Control, DC, uniquely allows users to share access to their resources with others. This means that resource owners, individuals or groups, have the flexibility to determine who can access their resources and what level of access they have. For example, read, write, edit, delete. Here's why the other options don't offer the same level of user control over access sharing. A. Mandatory Access Control, MAC. This model enforces strict access control based on predefined security labels set by a central authority. Users don't have the ability to share access as permissions are predetermined. C. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. This model assigns permissions based on predefined roles within an organization. While roles can involve access to multiple resources, users within the same role have the same permissions and cannot directly share access with others. D. Attribute-Based Access Control, RBAC. This model utilizes various attributes, for example, user identity, resource type, time, location, to determine access. While users can be part of different groups with varying access levels, RBAC typically doesn't offer fine-grained access sharing capabilities at the individual user level like DAC. Question number 10. Which of the following best describes Mandatory Access Control, MAC model? A. Access control is based on predefined rules. B. Access control is based on user identity. C. Access control is based on data classification. D. Access control is based on roles. The correct answer is C. Access control is based on data classification. Mandatory Access Control, MAC, is a security model where access control decisions are based on the classification of data and the security labels assigned to users and resources. In a MAC model, access control is enforced by the system rather than by individual users or resource owners. The system ensures that only users with the necessary security clearance can access specific resources based on their security labels. Option A. Access control is based on predefined rules might be more closely associated with rule-based access control, RBAC, or policy-based access control, PBAC, where access control decisions are defined by rules or policies rather than data classification. Option B. Access control is based on user identity is more aligned with identity-based access control, IBAC, or discretionary access control, DAC, where access decisions are based on user identities or at the discretion of resource owners. Option D. Access control is based on roles is characteristic of role-based access control, RBAC, where access decisions are determined by the roles assigned to users within an organization rather than data classification. Question number 11. What is the key feature of role-based access control, RBAC model? A. Access control is based on user identity. B. Access control is based on data classification. C. Access control is based on predefined rules. D. Access control is based on roles. The correct answer is D. Access control is based on roles. Role-based access control, RBAC, is a model where access control decisions are based on the roles that users have within an organization. In RBAC, users are assigned roles, and permissions are associated with these roles. Users inherit the permissions associated with the roles they are assigned, simplifying the management of access control in large organizations. Option A, access control is based on user identity, typically refers to identity-based access control, IBAC, where access decisions are made based on individual user identities. Option B, access control is based on data classification, is more aligned with mandatory access control, MAC, where access decisions are made based on the classification of data and security labels assigned to users and resources. Option C, access control is based on predefined rules, could refer to rule-based access control, RAC, where access decisions are made based on predefined rules and conditions. In summary, the key feature of role-based access control, RBAC, is that access control is based on roles, simplifying access management by associating permissions with roles rather than individual user identities. Question number 12. In which access control model are access rights determined by the resource owner? A. DAC, B. MAC, C. RBAC, D. All of the above. The correct answer is A. DAC, Discretionary Access Control. In Discretionary Access Control, DAC model, access rights are determined by the resource owner. In this model, the resource owner has the discretion to decide who can access their resources and what level of access they can have. The resource owner can grant or revoke access permissions to users as they see fit, based on their own criteria or policies. Other options: B. MAC, Mandatory Access Control. In MAC model, access rights are not determined by the resource owner but rather by a central authority or system administrator. Access control decisions are based on security labels assigned to subjects and objects, and access is granted or denied based on predefined security policies. Users do not have the discretion to modify access rights in MAC. C. RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. In RBAC model, access rights are based on roles rather than individual users. Users are assigned roles, and access permissions are associated with these roles. Access is granted based on the roles assigned to users, making it easier to manage access control in large organizations. However, in RBAC, access rights are not determined by the resource owner, but by the system administrators who define roles and permissions. D. None of the above. This option implies that none of the access control models listed, DAC, MAC, RBAC, have access rights determined by the resource owner, which is incorrect as DAC specifically involves the resource owner determining access rights. Hello viewers, please subscribe my YouTube channel and like and share this video to get or reach large audience. If you're enjoying the content, why not give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Question number 13. Which access control model is commonly used in military and government environments? A. DAC, B. MAC, C. RBAC, D. All of the above. The correct answer is B. MAC, Mandatory Access Control. MAC, Mandatory Access Control. In MAC, access control is based on security labels assigned to subjects and objects. The access decisions are determined by the system and are based on predefined security policies. This model is commonly used in military and government environments where strict access control is necessary to protect sensitive information. DAC, Discretionary Access Control. In DAC, the owner of the resource decides who can access the resource and what permissions they have. This model allows users to control access to their own resources. It is commonly used in non-governmental organizations where users have more control over resources they own. RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. In RBAC, access decisions are based on the roles individuals have in an organization rather than the individual user's identity. Users are assigned roles, and permissions are granted based on those roles. RBAC is widely used in various organizations to manage access control efficiently. Therefore, the correct answer is B, MAC, as it is the access control model commonly used in military and government environments due to its strict and predefined security policies that are crucial for protecting sensitive information. Question number 14. In which access control model are access rights based on the roles that users have within an organization? A, DAC, B, MAC, C, RBAC, D, all of the above. The correct answer is C, RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. DAC, Discretionary Access Control. In DAC, access rights are based on the discretion of the resource owner. The resource owner decides who has access to the resource and what permissions they have. This model is decentralized and allows users to control access to their own resources. MAC, Mandatory Access Control. In MAC, access rights are determined by a central authority based on security labels assigned to resources and users. Users do not have the ability to change access controls, as they are set by system administrators or security policies. This model is commonly used in government and military environments. RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. In RBAC, access rights are based on the roles that users have within an organization. Users are assigned roles and permissions are associated with these roles. This model simplifies the management of access controls by grouping users with similar job functions and assigning permissions based on these roles. RBAC helps organizations enforce the principle of least privilege, where users have only the permissions necessary to perform their job functions. All of the above is not the correct answer in this case because DAC and MAC are not access control models, where access rights are based on roles within an organization. DAC is based on the resource owner's discretion, while MAC is based on security labels and policies set by a central authority. Therefore, the correct answer is C, RBAC, Role-Based Access Control, as it specifically aligns with access rights being based on the roles that users have within an organization. Question number 15. Which access control model enforces access control based on security classification and user clearance levels? A, DAC, B, MAC, C, RBAC, D, all of the above. The correct answer is B, MAC. The access control model that enforces access control based on security classification and user clearance levels is Mandatory Access Control, MAC. Here's a breakdown of why the other options are incorrect. A, DAC, Discretionary Access Control. This model grants owners of resources control over who can access them, regardless of any predefined classifications or clearances. C, RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. This model assigns permissions based on predefined roles within an organization, not security classifications or user clearance levels. D, all of the above. This is incorrect because only MAC utilizes security classification and user clearance levels. Key characteristics of MAC. Centrally managed, security classifications are predefined and enforced by a central authority, ensuring consistency and strict control. Clear hierarchy. Classifications are organized in a hierarchical structure, for example, top secret, secret, confidential, where access is granted based on user clearance levels. Limited user control. Users have limited control over access to resources, as access is determined by predefined classifications and user clearances. Therefore, MAC is the only model that enforces access control based on a predetermined security classification system and user clearance levels, making it the most suitable choice for scenarios with highly sensitive information and strict security requirements. Question number 16. Which access control model allows for flexibility in granting or restricting access to resources? A, DAC, B, MAC, C, RBAC, D, all of the above. The correct answer is A, DAC, Discretionary Access Control. Among the listed models, DAC offers the most flexibility in granting or restricting access to resources. Here's why. DAC, Discretionary Access Control, grants the owner of a resource, data, file, application, etc., the authority to decide who can access the resource. This includes granting access to specific users, groups, or even making the resource publicly accessible. Define the level of access granted. This could involve granting read-only access, edit permissions, or even full control over the resource. MAC, Mandatory Access Control, enforces strict access control based on predefined security classifications and user clearance levels. It offers limited flexibility, as access decisions are not directly controlled by individual resource owners. RBAC, Role-Based Access Control, assigns permissions based on predefined roles within an organization. This offers some level of flexibility compared to MAC, as roles can be adjusted, but it's still less flexible than DAC because access isn't directly controlled by individual owners. Key note: while all models have their purpose, DAC stands out for its flexibility by allowing resource owners to make discretionary decisions about access control, offering them greater control and customization. However, this flexibility also carries the potential for misconfiguration and security risks if access is not managed carefully. Question number 17. Which access control model is best suited for environments where data sensitivity and clearance levels are critical? A. DAC. B. MAC. C. RBAC. D. All of the above. The correct answer is B. MAC, Mandatory Access Control. Mandatory Access Control, MAC, is the access control model best suited for environments where data sensitivity and clearance levels are critical. In MAC, access control decisions are based on the security labels assigned to both users and resources. This model ensures that data sensitivity and clearance levels are strictly enforced, as access is determined by the system rather than the resource owner or user discretion. Option A, DC, Discretionary Access Control, gives resource owners discretion over who can access their resources, which may not be ideal for environments where strict control over data sensitivity and clearance levels is required. Option C, RBAC, Role-Based Access Control, focuses on granting access based on the roles users have within an organization, which may not provide the level of control needed for environments with critical data sensitivity and clearance levels. Option D. All of the above is not the correct answer in this case because while DAC, MAC, and RBAC are all access control models, MAC is specifically designed to handle situations where data sensitivity and clearance levels are crucial, making it the most suitable choice in such environments. Question number 18. Differentiate between Mandatory Access Control, MAC, and Discretionary Access Control, DAC. A. MAC is based on user identity, while DAC relies on resource attributes. B. DAC allows users to set access permissions, while MAC is centrally administered. C. MAC is primarily concerned with encryption, while DAC focuses on user roles. D. DAC and MAC are interchangeable terms. The key difference between Mandatory Access Control, MAC, and Discretionary Access Control, DAC, lies in who controls access. A. DAC allows users to set access permissions, while MAC is centrally administered. Here's a breakdown of the statement and why the other options are incorrect. A. MAC is based on user identity, while DAC relies on resource attributes. This distinction is inaccurate. Both models can consider user identity and resource attributes depending on their specific implementations. However, the control mechanism is the key differentiator. C. MAC is primarily concerned with encryption, while DAC focuses on user roles. This is incorrect. Encryption is a separate security measure that can be used alongside both MAC and DAC. Neither model focuses solely on encryption or user roles. D. DAC and MAC are interchangeable terms. This statement is false. As explained earlier, DAC and MAC represent distinct access control models with different control mechanisms and purposes. Additional points to differentiate MAC and DAC. Security level. MAC offers higher security due to its centralized control and focus on data sensitivity. DAC offers greater flexibility but potentially lower security as individual users control access. Control granularity. MAC typically offers finer-grained control based on predefined security labels. DAC might offer less granular control depending on how access permissions are set by individual owners. In conclusion, the core distinction between MAC and DAC lies in the centralized control of access in MAC compared to the discretionary, user-controlled access permissions in DAC. Their different approaches make them suitable for varying security requirements. Hey there, viewers! If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and hitting the notification bell. Your support means a lot to us, and it helps our content reach a wider audience. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, family, or anyone who might benefit from the information. We appreciate your support in helping our community grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.